There is a peculiar suffering that many people willingly carry. It is not hunger, poverty, or physical pain. It is the desperate need to be understood by everyone. You wish to explain yourself. You wish to correct every false impression. You wish to defend your intentions so that no one thinks poorly of you. Yet in doing so, you become a prisoner of other people's opinions. Consider this carefully. How many hours of your life have been spent rehearsing explanations in your mind? How many nights have been disturbed because someone misjudged your character? How often have you altered your behavior simply to avoid being misunderstood? You seek peace, yet you hand your peace to others. Remember this: you do not control what another person thinks of you. You may speak with perfect clarity and still be misunderstood. You may act with pure intentions and still be accused of selfish motives. You may show kindness and still be seen as weak. You may remain silent and be called arrogant. You may speak and be called foolish. The opinions of others are not always reflections of reality. Often they are reflections of themselves. A man sees according to his own fears, wounds, desires, and prejudices. One person sees confidence and calls it pride. Another sees boundaries and calls them cruelty. Another sees calmness and mistakes it for indifference. Why then should you spend your life trying to manage perceptions that were never yours to control? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that every soul sees the world through its own judgments. Therefore, do not become disturbed by judgments that arise from minds you do not govern. You are not required to stand in every courtroom where your character is being discussed. Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. There is great strength in allowing others to hold incomplete opinions about you. The oak tree does not explain itself to the wind. The mountain does not defend itself against passing clouds. The sun does not argue with those who prefer darkness. They simply continue being what they are. So must you. Many of your explanations are not acts of wisdom but acts of fear. You fear rejection, you fear being disliked, you fear being seen incorrectly. But ask yourself this: if your character remains intact, what exactly has been damaged? Nothing. Your virtue remains your own. Your integrity remains your own. Your ability to act with justice, courage, and self-control remains untouched. Only an image has been threatened, and images are fragile things that exist only in the minds of others. The Stoic learns to care more about being good than appearing good. These are not the same. To appear good depends upon witnesses. To be good depends only upon your choices. If your conscience is clear, then another person's misunderstanding becomes a passing shadow. It may darken the ground for a moment, but it cannot extinguish your light. There will be people who misunderstand your silence. Let them. There will be people who misunderstand your boundaries. Let them. There will be people who misunderstand your growth and call it distance. Let them. There will be people who misunderstand your refusal to tolerate disrespect and call it arrogance. Let them. Their misunderstanding is not your burden to carry. Your burden is to remain virtuous despite it, because the need to explain yourself endlessly comes from an invisible belief that if everyone understood you, you would finally feel at peace. But peace does not come from universal approval. Peace comes from self-command. It comes from knowing who you are and requiring no vote from the crowd to confirm it. A disciplined mind understands that being misunderstood is not a tragedy. It is simply one of the conditions of being human. Even the wisest among us were misunderstood. The philosopher was called strange. The truth-teller was called difficult. The peaceful person was called weak. The independent person was called cold. If you live according to principle rather than popularity, misunderstanding becomes inevitable. Accept it. Do not chase every person carrying an incorrect picture of you. You would spend your entire life running. Instead, direct your energy toward what remains within your control. Speak honestly, act justly, remain calm, keep your word, protect your character, and then release everything else. Let people think what they wish. Let them tell their stories. Let them draw their conclusions. You do not exist to manage the imagination of others, you exist to govern yourself. At the end of your days, it will matter very little who misunderstood you. It will matter greatly whether you understood yourself. Therefore, walk quietly. Do good without announcement. Live according to your principles. And if people misunderstand you, let them. The sun still rises, even when hidden by clouds, for there is a hidden freedom that only a few discover. The moment you no longer need everyone to understand you, you become lighter. You stop performing, you stop explaining, you stop chasing acceptance, and you begin to live. Observe how much of human anxiety comes from this desire to control perception. A person says one unkind thing, and your mind immediately begins preparing a defense. Someone grows distant, and you search for ways to prove your intentions. A rumor spreads, and suddenly your peace depends upon correcting every falsehood. But consider how exhausting this is. You become like a man trying to hold water in his hands. The harder you grasp, the more slips away. Perception is never fully yours to command. You can offer truth, but you cannot force understanding. You can show kindness, but you cannot make another person see it. You can explain yourself once with honesty and clarity. Beyond that, there comes a point where further explanation becomes attachment, and attachment always creates suffering. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that external things cannot wound the soul unless the soul grants them permission. A misunderstanding is merely an event. It is your judgment about it that becomes the source of pain. You say, "This person thinks badly of me." Very well. But then you add, "This is unbearable. I must change their opinion." Here, suffering begins, for now your tranquility depends upon a circumstance outside your authority. The Stoic refuses to place his peace in such uncertain hands. He understands that every person carries a private world within them. They do not see you completely. They see fragments. They see your actions, but not your struggles. They hear your words, but not your intentions. They witness your decisions, but not the years of thought that led to them. How then can they judge with perfect accuracy? And how can you expect perfect understanding from imperfect observers? Accept this reality, and your heart becomes calmer. You realize that misunderstanding is not evidence that you have failed. Sometimes it is evidence that you are changing. When you begin setting boundaries, some will misunderstand. When you choose peace instead of drama, some will misunderstand. When you stop seeking approval, some will misunderstand. When you become disciplined, some will call you cold. When you choose solitude for growth, some will call you distant. But should you abandon wisdom simply because it is inconvenient to others? Certainly not. The farmer does not stop planting because someone mocks the seeds. The sailor does not abandon his course because others cannot see the destination. Likewise, you should not abandon virtue because others cannot yet understand your path. There is also another truth you must remember. Not everyone deserves access to your explanations. Some people ask for your reasons only to argue with them. Some ask questions not to understand, but to criticize. Some demand explanations because they wish to maintain control over you. To such people, endless explanations become chains. The Stoic breaks these chains. He speaks when necessary. He remains silent when words would change nothing. He understands that silence itself can be an expression of wisdom. For every unnecessary explanation weakens your inner authority. Every desperate defense communicates uncertainty, but calm silence often reveals strength. The person who knows himself does not tremble before misunderstanding. He remains steady. He remains composed. He remains faithful to his principles because he understands something profound. His character is built by his actions, not by another person's interpretation of them. Therefore, train yourself in this discipline. When someone misunderstands you, pause. Do not rush to defend. Ask yourself, has my virtue been harmed? If the answer is no, then nothing essential has been lost. Continue doing what is right. Continue speaking truthfully. Continue acting with justice. Continue becoming the person you wish to be, and let misunderstanding pass over you like clouds moving across the sky. For the sky does not struggle against the clouds, it simply remains vast, patient, and unmoved. Become like the sky. Let people misunderstand you. Let them underestimate you. Let them create stories about you. Then quietly continue your work. Because the greatest revenge is not correction. It is peace. And the greatest proof of character is not being understood by everyone. It is remaining virtuous even when you are not. And perhaps this is one of the most difficult lessons in life. Some people will misunderstand you until the very end. No explanation will be enough. No evidence will satisfy them. No amount of kindness will change their conclusion. This is not because you have failed to communicate. It is because every person protects the beliefs that serve their own view of the world. A man who distrusts others may interpret your sincerity as manipulation. A person consumed by envy may mistake your discipline for arrogance. One who fears abandonment may see your independence as rejection. You cannot enter another person's mind and rearrange their judgments, nor is it your duty. Your duty is simpler and far more demanding. To govern yourself, to examine your own thoughts, to act according to reason, to keep your character free from bitterness. Because there is a subtle danger in being misunderstood. You may begin to resent those who misjudge you. You may become cold, defensive, angry. You may carry their opinions within you and allow them to shape your behavior. Then, even though they misunderstood you, you have surrendered something far more valuable, your inner peace. The Stoic refuses this surrender. He says, "They have mistaken me, very well, but I will not mistake myself." This is the discipline, to know who you are so clearly that another person's opinion becomes merely sound passing through the air. Think of a deep lake. When the surface is struck by wind, small waves appear, but beneath the surface there remains great stillness. Most people live only on the surface. Every criticism shakes them, every rumor disturbs them, every misunderstanding sends them searching for approval. The Stoic lives deeper. He hears the opinions of others but does not allow them to reach the foundation of his being, because he has learned where his value truly comes from. Not from applause, not from praise, not from being seen correctly, but from living in agreement with virtue. And there is another freedom hidden here. When you no longer fear being misunderstood, you become more authentic. You say what needs to be said. You set necessary boundaries. You make difficult decisions. You pursue meaningful work. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into the expectations of others. How many people live imprisoned because they are afraid of being misinterpreted? They remain silent when they should speak. They say yes when they wish to say no. They tolerate disrespect. They abandon their principles. They wear masks so that everyone will approve of them. Yet beneath these masks there is exhaustion. Because pretending is labor, trying to manage everyone's perception is labor, but truth is restful. The person who accepts misunderstanding no longer needs to perform. He simply lives. He wakes each day and asks, "What is the right thing to do?" Then he does it. Whether others understand him or not becomes secondary. This does not mean becoming careless or cruel. The Stoic is not indifferent to people. He is indifferent to unnecessary dependence upon their approval. He still speaks with kindness. He still explains when wisdom requires it. He still listens with humility. But once he has acted with sincerity, he releases the outcome. He does not cling. He does not chase. He does not beg to be seen correctly, because he knows something many never learn. People's opinions change like the weather. Today they misunderstand you. Tomorrow they praise you. The next day they criticize you again. Will you allow your peace to rise and fall with every changing wind? Or will you anchor yourself somewhere deeper? Anchor yourself in character. Anchor yourself in virtue. Anchor yourself in the knowledge that your worth does not increase because someone understands you, nor diminish because someone does not. Then you become free, free to be calm, free to be honest, free to walk your path without constant explanation, free to let others hold incomplete opinions of you. And in this freedom, something remarkable happens. You discover that being misunderstood is not a burden. It is simply the price of living truthfully. Pay it willingly, pay it calmly, and continue your journey. For the sun does not ask the world to understand its light. It simply shines,